I want to ask the other commissioners to, how much time do you think the report's going to take?
An hour.
We don't have much. We may have another hour here. Do we want to spend another hour and get through and bypass lunch and get this over? Do you want to take an hour and a half for lunch and come back? Stay here. Keep going?
Keep going.
We're in. We're going. Information reports, wild horse update, Chief of Habitat Elmer Bull.
Anthony Miller.
Commissioners, for the record, my name is Anthony Miller. I'm with the Nevada Department of Wildlife, biologist, standing in for Elmer Bull. Can you hear me?
No.
For the record, my name is Anthony Miller. I'm a habitat biologist for the Nevada Department of Wildlife, standing in for Chief of Habitat Elmer Bull. And we'll give you a wild horse update for the state of Nevada. During the December commission meeting in Reno, Elmer Bull reported that the Nevada Association of Counties had sent a letter on September 18th, 2012 to former Secretary of Interior Ken Salazar detailing the inadequacy of the current wild horse and burro management program administered by the BLM. The letter went on to state that the inadequate management of wild horses and burros has a negative impact on the economies of various counties in Nevada, and that the administration is considering legal action if the BLM doesn't amend the management program to bring wild horse and burro populations to our below the established AML levels as required by the Wild Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act of 1971. Now, we had an email, or Elmer had an email correspondence with Jeff Fontaine, Executive Director of the Association, and he informed Elmer that the association has still not received response to the September letter, and they have issued another letter giving them a window of 10 days to respond. And after a conversation with Elmer yesterday, they still haven't responded to that letter. Now you should, I think I provided a copy to all of you. You should have in front of you, and that should show you the details. Not much different from the previous letter, just stating a 10-day asking window to respond. The issue was taken up with the Association Board of Directors on January 25th, and the board elected to delay any further action until the Department of Interior has ample time to respond to the second letter. Moving on to the next issue is the Northeast Nevada Wild Horse Eco Sanctuary. The BLM in the Wellsfield office has completed the Northeast Nevada Wild Horse Eco Sanctuary Resource Management Plan and an EIS scoping summary report. The scoping summary report summarizes all of the issues raised and comments received during the initial public scoping and a period for the proposed Northeast Nevada Wild Horse Eco Sanctuary. Nevada Department of Wildlife is working with BLM to finalize a memorandum of understanding for cooperative agency status in the EIS development process. So Elmer said that that was an important issue to you all, and is that satisfactory as far as
Yes.
NDOW's involvement? Okay.
Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, just to report on the Eco Sanctuary item. The scoping report did come out. It did not include the letter that this commission authorized me to draft and send. And if you remember, when we authorized myself to write that letter, we were already after the close of the scoping period. So I did contact the Wells office and their program lead for this project. Asked them if they had received our correspondence. They said they had. It was after the deadline. So it wasn't in the scoping report, but they would address the questions that we asked in our letter as part of their analysis and development of their environmental documents going forward. So I do have confirmation that they received that, and I think that's probably all we need to address from that standpoint.
Anybody else have anything? Commissioner Rain?
As far as on this issue, the Nevada Association of Counties, I think it would behoove this commission to put on, if they are taking any action, to go ahead and bring that onto any future agendas we have. And I think that we should think about how we can support their actions as best as possible, because it appears to me that they are acting in the best interests of the wildlife of the state of Nevada, and in a manner that perhaps this commission does not have the ability to do. But if there's anything we can do to support them, we most certainly should do so. And I'd like to see that on future agendas as that comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, moving on to just a summary of what's going on around the state, the different regions with wild horse and burro management. In the Endow Western region, Buckhorn and Coppersmith horse management area, the established AML is 109 to 160 head. The current population is estimated at 247 horses. The BLM proposes to gather 234 wild horses, removing 138 and releasing up to 96 back following fertility control. The post-gather population target is 109 wild horses. And that gather is scheduled to take place, this fall 2012, which is already past this, to 2015. And it says the gather is of interest because the horses do move between California and northern Washoe County and Nevada. The Waihe District, Horse Management, Elko District, the BLM resumed gather operations on January 24th, 2013. About 186 wild horses will be gathered. Of the 186 gathered, 47 will be removed from the range, with the remainder being released back to the HMA, with approximately 46 mares being vaccinated with PZP-22 fertility control vaccination. Any wild horses gathered above the target removal numbers will be released back to the HMA. For the Diamond Complex wild horse gather area, it includes 3 herds management areas, and the initial operation will remove approximately 603 excess wild horses out of an estimated 813 currently residing in the complex. All mares selected for release back to the HMAs will be treated with PZP, and sex ratios will be adjusted to 60-40 to favor stallions in the post-gather population. As of January 28, 330 horses have been removed from complex operations and are now beginning in the Elko District. And then in our southern region, the BLM has proposed 3 environmental assessments, including the Hickson Wild Burro Territory Appropriate Management Levels and Management Action Project, and that's an EA. The Monte Cristo Territory Management Plan, that's an EA. And the Spring Mountain Wild Horse and Burro Complex, EA. So 3 EAs proposed in the southern region. And that's about all I have for the horse update. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Jones? Do you have something?
I have several I have 2 comment cards. One's for agenda item 6 in general, and one's for 6D. I believe the chairman will allow, it is an informational item, but I believe the chairman's going to allow comment or a question.
These are informational items that we don't need to take public comment on, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Larry Johnson, Coalition for Nevada's Wildlife, and again, in one of my former lives, I was a wildlife representative to BLM's National Wild Horse Advisory Board. I think it would be very useful if you asked the department in their reports to you to give you an overall status, simply because of the approximate 85 horse management areas in the state of Nevada. I believe there are probably at least 20 of them that are hundreds of percent over appropriate management level, and I think that would be valuable information for both the commission as well as the public to hear. Secondly, the use of PZP was referenced in the report. In the past few years, that PZP has been administered pretty widespread across the West. It has been documented that it is practically totally ineffective in controlling reproduction rates in the wild horse herds. I had long proposed spaying of mares instead of the use of the PZP drug. Humane Society of America, of course, holds the patent on PZP. Spaying of mares in the field is being done on the Sheldon National Wildlife Range by veterinarians in Oregon. Their costs for spaying is practically identical to the use of PZP. The most recent advisory board, BLM advisory board, made the official recommendation to BLM that they substitute spaying of mares rather than the use of PZP. I wish this commission would further that recommendation. This program's been out of control for decades, and we need to do everything we possibly can to reduce the reproduction rate of the wild horses on our Nevada rangeland. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commission comments on agenda item A? Commissioner Macbeth?
In follow-up to what Mr. Johnson stated, I had made the request at the last meeting that NDOW put together a list of all of the HMUs and list out what AML is for each one and what the population is, so we could have that data and be looking at the impacts that the wild horses have on our rangelands. And so anyway, I'll reiterate that request that I think that's really good information that this commission needs to be looking at.
Commissioner Rain?
I'd just like to ask staff, and what's the best method for us, for the commission to take? I'm in agreement with Mr. Johnson's opinion about the spaying and whatnot. What action would be the best action for this commission to take in that aspect? Staff have any advice on that? I'm a little lax on exactly what actions would be reasonable for this commission to take in reference to the spaying of horses, maybe writing a letter. Is that? We all seem to be in agreement on this subject, I think.
Ken, Mayor, for the record, clearly the commission could write a letter to the BLM supporting, whatever you'd like them to do. And be on the record, that's certainly not a bad thing to do.
So, and that being the case, I'd like to see that on the next agenda, and perhaps, a letter, and we could have anybody that is interested in writing a letter bring drafts to our next meeting. Maybe Mr. Johnson can come up with something, maybe some other commissioners can, or we can have staff try to draft something and bring it up and we can hash out the next meeting. Thank you.
And I agree with Commissioner Rain that we do need to draft some type of letter, and we need to get it on the agenda to get some type of letter going, but I don't think it's only on a spaying issue. We need to address the management areas that are over populated. We need to address multiple items in a letter, and I think we need to look at what we can get in that letter and get something going in that direction. So we'll get that on the next agenda. Commissioner McNish.
Thank you. And, I think there's got to be a level of understanding that just my very small interaction with BLM staff, especially at WAFA meetings and stuff, they're as frustrated as we are. This is way above them, too. These field staff, they do understand the issue. They understand the problem. Their hands are tied in every matter, every sense, in every which way, and then some. So I think as we go through this process and we have those discussions, we got to figure out, I believe when Clint was on the commission, we had some visitors straight out of the Washington office in the room a couple of times, and I actually thought we were making progress there for a while, and it kind of slid back, and maybe we need to introduce that discussion and see if we can get those folks back in the audience and get them, see if they'll come out and talk to us, because short of a lawsuit, there's not a lot that they're going to listen to, and to be quite frank, lawsuits, what's new to them? You know, they have so many of them piling up that it doesn't even faze them anymore either. So we got to come up with some way of having a different kind of discussion, a different way of getting to something that'll help. I mean, it's nobody wants to see the horses suffer either. I mean, you know, we're not all cold-hearted. My interest, of course, is with the wildlife, but at some point they're going to impact. I mean, they impact themselves too. I mean, they get themselves out of house and home. And so.
Any other commission comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 6C, Tag Allocation Hunt Application Committee. This is on there. It's been noticed, and the reason that I wanted this left on there is to let the county advisory boards know that meeting will be held here tonight, I believe 6:30. All the involvement we can get would be appreciated. This committee was sidelined for a bit, but we're trying to get it going, and the main focus tonight is on developing some questions that we can get into a survey that we can have associated with the tag draw, and then we're going to review the list of possible things we need to review as the TAC committee again. So hope everybody can make it. Any questions on Tag Allocation Committee from the commission? Seeing none, we'll move on to 6D, Sage-grouse update.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ken Mayer for the record. Well, I'm going to report on 3 different levels. First of all, I might comment on the state level. The funding for the Sagebrush Council and the technical team are in the governor's budget and available for everyone to look at. The council has been appointed. I think Commissioner Drew is on the council, and the council's first meeting is this month in February, on the 22nd?
21st.
21st. And that we have we're in the process of completing the interviews for the technical folks, and people are being hired. So I think we'll be in pretty good shape as far as having all that pulled together before you know it. On the national, well, let's go to the bi-state. The Fish and Wildlife Service is continuing to do their analysis of the status of the bi-state population of sage-grouse. I'm happy to report that we were able to, with our NRCS partners, find $14 million to purchase easements. So we have 5,500 acres in easement in the bi-state. The Yerington land bill looks like it has bipartisan support, and I like to hear Senator Reed and Senator Heller talking about getting this thing pushed through and resolving whatever issues that they had, because part of that is that the copper company has signed and made a commitment to purchase half of the Desert Creek Ranch, not purchase it, but the easement, which is the most important piece of property, private piece of property in the bi-state. So that's going to be huge. We continue to have our executive oversight meeting. In fact, we have one next week. The BLM and the Forest Service have started process and modifying their management plans to incorporate more safeguards for the bi-state population of sage-grouse. Dr. Pete Coates is funded to do more of his research. We have spent several $100,000 treating pinyon juniper. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work that's being done on the bi-state. And then I wrote a letter to the service challenging them with a number of things. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get the right decision, because I am convinced that whether it's the greater or whether it's the bi-state, listing the bird is the worst thing that can happen for the bird, because the energy will go away. the collaboration will cease. It'll become the federal bird, and they do not have Section 6 money to replace what's going on right now. We need to be working across private landowners, government agencies, private consultants. We're all working together, and that's just a paradigm shift that we need to seize the moment, quite frankly. On the national front, the Executive Oversight Committee nationally, which I chair, met at WAFWA. I can report that the EIS, the joint EIS by the BLM and the Forest Service, is on track. The USGS is currently working on a list of research needs for sage-grouse, and they have some of their own money they're willing to put into this. The COT team, the Conservation Objective Team, if you recall, which is made up of state biologist Sean Espinosa is on the COT. The first draft of the COT really didn't go far enough as far as how to set the bar, how much is enough. They kind of danced around it, and they did their peer review, and in fact the peer reviewers came back and said exactly the same thing. So the new COT report is out. I have not seen it, but I hear it's got a lot more specificity in it, and so I think that's going to be good for all of us, because if we know what that is, we can start managing to that bar. Let's see.
Ken, could I interrupt you? Could you
Yes.
just restate what the COT stands for? I know there's some.
Conservation Objective Team.
Okay. And that is separate from the NTT report?
Correct.
Okay. Because
And
I've
there's
heard
been-
some people that have
Yeah,
had
and
some
there's some confusion about what's the NTT, the National Technical Team, and what's the COT. When BLM started their EIS process, those of us that were on the policy end of it said, you really need to develop some policy direction for the Forest Service and BLM employees that are going to do this. And their response to that was to stand up a national technical team. And what they did is they looked at the science around the conservation of sage-grouse and developed that report that provides that basically gold standard, if you will, for sage-grouse. Now, does that mean that everything in the NTT has to be implemented in order to conserve the bird and keep it off the list? No. It's just saying if you're going to manage at the highest level for sage-grouse, this is what you need to do, and providing some latitude in there. So Sean Espinosa from our staff also was on the NTT report. So after that, the service was asked, well, how much is enough? I mean, the NTT is the gold standard of everything you want to do good for sage-grouse, but how much is enough? I mean, there's at some level. And so the service stood up a committee of some of the NTT members, but specifically to try to drill into that question. Now, recently there was a letter that was sent to the Secretary of Interior, signed by 100 scientists, and there's, I'd say, a handful of really top-notch scientists recognized globally that signed this letter saying that the NTT report should be the standard for conservation of the sage-grouse, and that only that should be considered. Well, the BLM direction and the purpose of the NTT was not that. So I think that I'm pretty confident that WAFWA or another organization doesn't need to respond, because it's already in the BLM on the website. You can download it yourself and see what it's meant to be, and that's what will be presented in court if there is a lawsuit. You can imagine where this might be going. If the bird is found to be not warranted, there's going to be a lawsuit from a variety of groups. They'll say that NTT reports should be used and implemented in all state situations. I think it's pretty clear that that was not the intention of that. So you may have heard about this letter, and I can certainly provide a copy to you if you'd like to see. It's very short, 3 paragraphs, just basically says, Secretary, you need to implement nothing less than the NTT report. So a lot of stuff going on. I guess with that, I'd open it up for any other questions that you might have.
Commissioner Rain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really think that the Department of Wildlife is on the wrong track with sage-grouse. I've been keep watching the action of the Department of Wildlife, and it appears to me that the few on-the-ground actions that are being advocated and enacted by the Department of Wildlife appear to be, if anything, deliberately designed to get it listed. We're on the wrong path. We're out there, seeing NDOW today is actively giving recommendations to the Bureau of Land Management to reduce or eliminate grazing in many areas, land areas I'm speaking of, including areas, and at least one, I know one of, he came up in just recent days, that there is no evidence of sage-grouse even being there. This is playing politics with people's livelihoods, and historically, when we're looking back at the history, and it's, how much of this have we seen already in this commission? It's huge. Historically, the primary reasons that we have seen that have enhanced sage-grouse, and we're talking over the past many decades, and this is about this report. We're on the wrong track, and I'm trying to explain that, is that populations have been much wider spread in the past due to increases in grazing in many areas that used to, and the things that came with that, including virtually unlimited and unrestricted water development by those people. And that is where we should be at, and that's not where we're at today.
Okay, Scott, this is an informational item, and it's starting to sound like
this is an informational item, and it needs to be information that we are in the wrong direction. The Department of Wildlife appears to be going down the path to actually make it listed deliberately. You couldn't almost design a plan to make it listed. If you deliberately said, I want to make it listed, what am I going to do? I'd take the actions that have been done by the administration of the Department of Wildlife, and I'd say, yeah, let's do this, and we'll get it listed, and we'll reduce the population of birds in Nevada by doing so. We're on the wrong track. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner McNash.
Thank you. Ken, I'd like to just, I do appreciate the fact that you and your staff have recognized that this is not just a statewide issue, but a range-wide issue, because I believe as part of that NTT, they identified the things that were going to most likely influence a listing. And one of those things had to do with the ability to recognize it's a range-wide issue, landscape scale species, but not just for sage-grouse, but there are other birds and other critters that have been thrown out there as part of the overwhelming. It's an ecosystem issue, okay, and that's kind of what's highlighted. So recognizing that it's much bigger than any individual state is paramount in my mind, because we could do everything we can here and it could still get listed. So I think that's a strong recognition. But I do appreciate it. I have seen Ken's interaction with the folks at the BLM level, the people that the individuals that will very likely make the decision, and there's a lot of progress being made there, and I hope it continues. I hope we're able to still continue down that path, and I know that they thought highly of you, think highly of you, and appreciate everything that you've done. But this sage-grouse thing is complex. It's been around for a long time. One of the biggest challenges is, how are you going to put a conservation plan in place as if the bird had been listed and make it work from a lawful standpoint? How are you going to make things happen if you don't, the legal structure around it? And I know that's one of the biggest challenges, and slowly but surely I'm seeing those issues being addressed a little bit at a time. Things like the agreement down in the Arrington area, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that are going to ultimately pull us through, my belief. Not that I've been around it for very long or anything.
Well, we have to remember who's in the driver's seat here, Fish and Wildlife Service.
That's right.
And we've supported grazing. In fact, we made it very clear that without grazing, in many instances, grouse go away. And it's a balancing act. It's not, grazing is not the top 3 or 4, but it's down there in the list, about 6 or 7. And if the BLM, quite frankly, is one has taken the action here, there are places, and livestock operators, and Pete and I have talked about this, they understand when it's year-round grazing and it looks like a parking lot, that's not a good thing. And the service is looking for recognition of those situations that need to be addressed. And that's not saying all grazing is bad, but
likewise, they're actually using it as a tool, because when you're fledging young, when you have these young in these, moderately grazed meadows, I mean, so they're actually using it as a tool too.
Correct.
So it's not a function of being anti-anything, it's a function of applying the proper prescription to
Correct.
what's going on with the grouse. And you see it in their plans, if you dig around and pay attention to what's being said and being done.
Yeah.
So.
The department's been the biggest advocate of grazing the Versace Ranch, as an example. We have a fence that goes right through the middle of the meadow. On one side, it's grazed and well-managed, got 200 grouse. On the other side of the fence, there's no grouse. So to say it's an all or nothing or down the wrong path is hyperbole at best, so.
Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, just a quick comment, and Ken mentioned it in his report, but I was asked and appointed to serve on what they're calling the Sagebrush Ecosystem Council, which is kind of designed to help move policy for the state plan and the state approach forward. I was officially appointed as the sportsman representative, so if anyone has ideas, concerns, thoughts, comments on specific to sage-grouse, again, it's the same offer I make to Wildlife Commission issues. My email and my phone number is posted online. Call me or email me anytime. I'd be willing to sit down and meet with you or talk over the phone or whatever, but please use me as a resource, and even Commissioner Raines, maybe we can have some discussions. So,
Anybody else have anything? Anything else? Okay, we'll move on.